Come on. Cat's just over here eating the other cat's food. I'm going to get my coffee before anyone gets... Dale! Hello, Dale! I was like, wow. I'm going to get my coffee before anyone shows up to say hi. I know YouTube, it's a little bit slower than TikTok-wise. I think because people were already on TikTok. Like, they were scrolling, you know? And so then when I went live, they were like, oh, hey, I'm already on TikTok. Let me just tap on this notification. But on YouTube, it feels slower. I don't know. Maybe YouTube is slower to send out the notifications. I come to you from my new refurbed computer. Yay! Downloading Discord and Kindle. Ha! That's awesome. How do you like the new refurbed computer? I knew I had these somewhere. I thought I was losing my brain. Next will be Audible. Yes. I do like having Audible on my computer. I gotta tell you. Come on. Ow, that friggin' hurts. It's Monday. But I bought those vitamins like 2 weeks ago. There we go. And all week I've been looking for them because I ran out, which is why I bought them, because I knew I was running out. Well, then I ran out. I couldn't find them. And it was getting to the point where I was like, maybe I thought I bought them, but didn't actually, you know, when you start like questioning your own memory of things. And my memory sucks anyway. There we go. All right, copy the link. Let me go ahead and share the link. Okay. And I had to wake up early this morning. I mean, I had to start work early this morning. I had to wake up anyway. I didn't wake up any earlier than normal. But instead of being able to like wake up and do my normal routine, I woke up to absolute client panic. Ugh. There we go. Seisha! Good morning, Seisha. Yeah, absolute client panic. Like, and I hate client panic. You ever do that thing where like you crack one nail? It's not like it fell off, but it's so much shorter than the rest of them that it feels weird. did that yesterday too. You hitting 80,000 today? Yay! Good morning. Took Yuki for a short walk, hoping she doesn't limp later. Fingers crossed. How's she doing? My kids are so mad at me this morning. Well, one of them is. Christopher is so mad. So, y'all know Steven picked up the kids last week, right? It's his first Thanksgiving with the kids in 3 years since he left. 2 years. How long ago did he leave? 2 years. So, okay, fine. I was not entirely happy that he picked them up, but I mean, he asked, and I've been complaining that he's not around enough for the kids, so whatever. He took the holiday. Okay, fine. Anyway, so then last night he brings them home, and then of course it's time to let's double check our homework. Let's, pack our school bags. Let's find the uniforms. Let's, get ready to go back to school. And Christopher goes, I don't have school tomorrow. I said, oh, yes, you do. He goes, no, I had 9 days to spend at home. I said, yes, you did. And you spent them with your dad. Like, you came home from school that Friday. You spent 3 days with me. And then Daddy picked you up and you spent the rest of the days with him. And Christopher was like, no, vacation means you stay at home. It doesn't mean you go to Dad's. So he's so mad that his whole vacation is gone and he spent it at his dad's, and that counted as vacation. Good morning, Jessica. When I was working for Life Touch at JCPenney, we had a lot of that during the holiday season. Then it gives you your own panic and it just turns into a giant ball of anxiety, right? Anyway, so that was a fun conversation with Christopher. He was very upset that vacation is still spent and gone, even if you didn't spend it at home. I have exactly 1,025 words left of my novella, but I have nothing left to write. Then are you sure you need those 1,025 words? So in my experience, if the story is done, now it's time to go back and edit. And through editing, depending on if you're an overwriter like I am or if you're an underwriter, you're going to end up expanding on certain scenes anyway, and or cutting down on certain scenes. That's why during writing, I don't really worry about word count. And that's also the biggest weakness of NaNoWriMo is it puts so much focus on the word count that, okay, wait, hold on, because something just crawled into my brain and I don't want anyone to misunderstand me. Biggest weakness about NaNoWriMo prior to finding out about the problematic moderators. Okay, that's clearly the biggest problem. However, in general, with NaNoWriMo, if those were not a thing, the biggest weakness is the focus on the word counts. And what I usually say is, while you're writing, don't even worry about the word counts at all. I mean, you want, there's a point where you go, I want this to be a full-length book. Therefore, the finished book needs to be over 40,000 words. Or I want this to be a short book. Or maybe you're, trying to submit to an anthology and they have a word count target or something along those lines, or a restriction or something. So, word counts do come into play. Just not while you're writing, typically. So if the story's done, you have nothing left to write, go back, start editing. There's a really good chance that you'll find scenes that need to be expanded on, and you'll find those 1,025 words in those scenes. Good morning. I just need the words for my goal for NaNoWriMo. Well, start book 2. If that's what you're trying to get to and you're like, I don't know what to do, then you go start book 2. Do a 1,000 word brain dump of book 2. And that still counts because it's new words, even though it's for a different book. And then once again, when you start editing, you'll probably expand on things. You've given up on Nano? Like, philosophically, or just like you're not going to hit 50,000 this month? You've got 3,000? Okay. So technically speaking, you can still do it. There's still plenty of time. We got, what, 3 days left? 10K days are totally doable for a lot of people. Even like a lot of people. Doesn't mean you can or should. And I'm certainly not telling you to go kill yourself trying to get to it. However, I totally believe, Laura, that if you sat down and you said, you know what, I'm going to hit 15,000 words for the next 3 days and get to that 50,000 word count in the next 3 days, I totally believe that you could do it. If you just need for the Nano, yeah, describe rooms, characters, yep. Probably going to have to cut some scenes just because of the large amount of triggers, possibly. I'm burnt out from kids and moving and pregnancy. Oof. Giving up on it too. You can always delete it, but you may add a detail that you say, aha! You want to use after all, yes. Aha! And you know what? If your book is done and you're like, I have nothing, there's nothing left to write at this point, I'm just writing fluff, go to Nano and lie. It's 1,000 words. I won't tell if you don't. Like, the whole point and value out of NaNoWriMo is to get up off your butt, put together a writing schedule, put together a writing routine, and get into the practice of writing into your normal routine and daily habits and things like that. So that you'll write your book. So you'll stop saying, someday I want to write a book, and you'll actually just like get up and do it. If you got up and you did it and it's done, I'm not going to tell if you skip out on those last 1,000 words. Now, if you were like, I'm not done yet, I'm not even close, but I've written 50,000 words, but my story isn't even close to done, then, I mean, do you really think you deserve to say that you're done if you didn't finish? I leave it to your conscience. But you finished the story, and you just happen to finish the story 1,000 words short of your goal. I say that's okay. Has been a lot, especially with family holidays and birthdays and everything else. Nano just went on the back burner this year. As, you know what, as it should. NaNoWriMo should almost never be anyone's top priority. I mean, when I was in ML, it was up in my lists. Not even for me necessarily so much as checking in on my people and whatnot. But even then, it was never my top priority. I do kind of miss being in ML sometimes, but I don't want to do in-person events. And what was great about living in New Mexico is I wasn't in any of the municipalities. Yeah, that's right. I wasn't in any of the big cities. So I was ML of New Mexico elsewhere, outside of all the big cities. Well, outside of all the big cities, we had 2 people in Taos. We had 2 people in Ruidoso, one of whom was me. We had 1 person in Las Cruces, and we had we had 1 or 2 people in Los Lunas, and like all of these towns were like 6 or 7 hours away from each other. So we had, all in all, in total, we had about 400, 400 or 500 people active in that region, but there was really no way for us to get together outside of like virtual write-ins and sprints and stuff. So, and I was all for the virtual. It was, let me do the virtual. So that was nice. But as soon as I moved to Illinois, well, I got here to Rockford, and boom, they already had an ML, but then they needed someone for Illinois elsewhere. But everyone in Illinois elsewhere is right here in Rockford. So it was, you have to organize in-person events. And I was like, nah. I love helping people, but I don't want to go to a restaurant to do it. Okay, thanks. My computer died and one of my backup drives got wiped. I have an extra backup, but it's not current. Oh, no. Yeah, you'll probably will cry. You probably will. I've been there. I don't trust anything anymore. But it's not the end of the world. I can tell you from experience, you will cry. It will be hard. You will be upset. You will have 15 backups of your stories from now until the end of time, but you'll recover. Writing priority has been my reader magnet, and I hate it. The writing sucks, and I'm just going to scrap and not do the reader magnet for what I planned on. What was your reader magnet? Alex! Good morning, Alex. What was your reader magnet? What were you trying to do? Need to put my story into Google Docs to keep it safe as well. I have so far had really good luck with Google Docs. It is still not perfect. I have still lost things to Google Docs. Okay? There is no 100% safe way to never lose your writing, period. There's like everything can fail at one point in time, including handwriting. I have lost notebooks, okay? There is no 100% fail safe where nothing bad never happens, nothing. However, so far, digitally, Google Docs, I've had the fewest amount of problems with. And those usually stem from my internet connection more than anything. Like if my internet connection went haywire for like a week one time. And because it wasn't connecting correctly to the server, my updates, like as I was writing, and I have offline access and all of that, so I thought I'd be fine, but for whatever reason, something refreshed and my updates didn't. So I lost like 2,000 words or whatever it was. So it's still not 100% fail safe. However, it's the one that has given me the least problems. A short story that I was going to use to get people to sign up for my newsletter. Oh, you know what? Yeah, no. That short stories, okay. Short stories are great. Do not get me wrong. Short stories are awesome, okay? But the people who go after short stories are very rarely the people who go after full-length books, because everyone has their own reading habits and whatnot, right? So it's very hard to write a short story you like that will attract readers for your long-form books. It works. Some people are able to do it. It's just very hard because it's different writing styles. Next thing you know, ask Alex. Your short story is a full-length book, or pretty darn close, or a whole novella, or something along those lines. May not be, 120,000 words, but it's not a short story of like under 10,000 either. So that's just really hard anyway. And that takes a lot of time. And so you end up putting a lot of time pressure on yourself to try to get it out. So put the short story ideas aside, because they work when you just write the short story. And then one day, as you're revamping your email marketing and you go, oh, I have this short story that I wrote, I should go ahead and send that out to my people. Like, they work as like, they work more as like, thank you for being on my list. Here's a short story for you, for people who are already on your list or already part of your community, not necessarily for attracting them. Okay, so put it aside. Start getting into your people's heads and think of other books that they want. This is my favorite lead magnet. There are other ways that you can do this, but this one happens to be my favorite. Get inside your people's heads. Go over to Project Gutenberg, which is gutenberg.org, right? That's a database of open public domain books, all sorts of genres. Go and do a search. Do a search for fantasy, do a search for science fiction, or whatever. Go do a search, and it'll show you within the sorted by popularity, it'll show you all these books that are now part of the public domain. Being part of the public domain means you can download them, slap some kind of inspirational message to them, put on a book cover, and distribute them however you want. That's why you're seeing like a lot of like annotated Winnie the Pooh, right? And stuff like that, because Winnie the Pooh is public domain. The original Winnie the Pooh. Obviously not Disney. Don't do that to Disney. Disney will come after you. But like the original story by A.A. Milne and whatnot, that story is in the public domain. Talk about how inspirational it was to you as a child, blah, blah, blah. Whatever your readers want. New book. Yeah, don't mess with Disney. Don't mess with Disney. But you put on a new book cover. Now you've got a free book that you can give away to people. Readers love free books. So you're going to grab everyone who wants that free book. And hopefully you're able to find one that's close enough to your genre. It doesn't have to be an exact match. But, if you're going for historical fiction, grab Monte Cristo, or grab, what are some of the other ones? Like, I just did this whole thing in there. If you're going for fantasy, there's Through the Looking Glass. There's so many that you can grab. You want to add something. You can annotate them, add in a chapter of inspiration, tie it to how, especially like if it was a book that you read as a kid that inspired you now, or parts of it have inspired your upcoming book, write in an introduction that talks about it. And now you've got, like, without having to write an entire story, now you've got a reader magnet that will draw in readers who want books. And it doesn't matter if they don't read it. That's the nice thing too. One of the reasons why I like this idea is because if you are focused on free chapters of your books and or free short stories that you write, if they don't like them, they're not buying, because they know you wrote them. If they don't read them, they may or may not buy. It all depends. Most people, though, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to, share this free chapter, and that's going to draw in the curiosity, and people will want to see what keeps happening. But if they don't read it, that doesn't work. If they do read it and they don't like it because it hasn't been edited or whatever, now they're definitely not going to buy. So I like doing complete other books instead. Go back to it later. Yeah. I can't even look at it without just cringing. I don't know if I need to put it away and come back later. Yeah, put it away and come back later. The mouse will turn into a nightmare. Yes. The bear was Canadian, so it is great. Nice. I don't even know, honestly, paranormal romance. Is that even a genre anymore? It does. Paranormal romance does feel like romantasy now. It does. It's like they're all this blending together. Sounds like a much better idea. I just need to figure out what's close enough. Yeah, it's Gutenberg.org, Project Gutenberg. If you go Google Project Gutenberg, it's a whole database. It's got thousands of books in there. So just start searching. I think I fall under historical fantasy, but there's a lot of other weird elements. Yeah, and some of them are still very popular. Now, some of them are super problematic. So depending on your genre and your audience, you might, like go and be like, okay, well, I really want to give out this book, but I have to acknowledge that it did this, or that there were these problems in it or whatever. Like some of them, your annotations will have to be fixing the message of whatever problems they did. If you can't find one, just depending on what the book is. If it's a popular enough book that your readers will like, then it's far better to just say, hey, look, I know that this book is problematic. Here are the ways that it's problematic. Here are the ways that I would fix it, blah, 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 and use your annotations to kind of fix it. You know what I mean? But in my opinion, it's better if you know that your readers like that book. It's just better to give them the book while acknowledging the problems within the book than it would be to not have anything. Not an idea popping in my head with paranormal romance. I mean, I love paranormal romance. I do. But it's all blending the same. And like, I read someone's book. Not going to say who, but I read someone's book who told me it was fantasy romance. And I was reading it and I was like, this is dark paranormal romance. This is not fantasy romance. Like, it did have a fantastical element to it in that someone in there used magic. But like, it wasn't even within the realm of the book. It was like their parents used magic once upon a time before the book as part of the backstory that came out in the book. And that was it. That was the only tie to fantasy in the whole book. Everything else was paranormal. And I was like, eh. And some authors, and I don't mean this in a they don't know what they're doing kind of way, but there's some authors that are trying so hard to stay out of genres. Like, it's like they feel like if you tell them they're in a specific genre, like they take offense to that. And so they're trying so hard to not be in a genre that they are mixing all of the genres together. Like, one person asked me if I would beta read, and I don't beta read for people anymore because I just never have time. So I'm beta reading for one particular person right now, because she's one of my best friends and I love her. But prior, one person asked me to beta read, and I said, well, no, I don't beta read, but what are you writing? Like, tell me about your book. And she was like, oh, it's fantasy, science fiction with romance and paranormal, and there's a little bit of historical and I was like, Why? Why does it have to have every single piece of every single genre in there? I think because they want to be so unique that they can't be labeled. Does that make sense? For some of them. And they don't realize. And like I had a client actually just like a couple of weeks ago. We were sitting on Zoom and she wanted help with her outline. So I was like, okay, what genre is this? Or what are some other books that are out there that are similar? And she's like, oh, there aren't any. Well, if there aren't any, then you're in trouble. Why are you writing a book then? She's like, it's completely new and it's completely unique and it's never been done before. It's 100% original. And I said, well, that's a problem because that means it's 100% unproven and you have no idea who reads that book or how to find them. Like, there's a reason why you want to be able to find other books that are similar to yours. And she was so offended by the idea that I was telling her it was problematic to be so completely unique that nothing else on the market was there. Now, there are certain times when that does work, usually nonfiction, usually emerging technologies, right? When NFTs were new, there were books coming out on NFTs that were brand new, and the first ones that came out had no market research behind them at all, other than like maybe Google Trends. But there were none because they were the first. But that's not the case with fiction. Franco! Hello, Franco! I just want to know what my label would be. If you don't know what your label should be, go back and think. Actually, Laura, do you have my book? If not, the ebook is like $4, I think, $4.99. But I have a list. Well, and you can search too. I'm sure you can find them online. Cat, I swear to God, if you don't put your butt down and stop bumping me with your face. Where is it? But I did put in a brief listing of all, here we go, all of the different genres. Page 46, 12 genres and their rule of thumb. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in fiction, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Put your butt down. Jesus. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think 12 and no, only 11 in nonfiction. I thought it was 12 and 12. Anyway, oh my God, Cat. Okay, hang on. No. You say hi? Yes. No, get down. For whatever reason, these cats are like, especially her, like I go to pick her up and she like claws out and like she keeps ripping up my sweaters. Getting pissed off. Anyway, so if you're not sure, you find a list of genres and their basic rule of thumb. The basic rule of thumb, that's the thing that readers are expecting, right? So, like romance, happy ending. Happy, could be happy for now, could be happy ever after, whatever. Happy ending. If it's not a happy ending, it's not a romance book, right? Doesn't mean doesn't have romance in it, but it's not a romance book. So you wouldn't list romance as part of the genre or as one of the categories. Fantasy, magic. magical creatures, magic happening, performing magic, whatever, but magic, right? Paranormal is supernatural, but based in realism. So, like, fantasy might be dragons and wizards. Paranormal is more like ghosts and poltergeists. You know, they're doing supernatural things, but it's based in the real world. So on and so forth. And then you can move on. Urban fantasy is magic in an urban setting. So on and so forth. Sounds like me talking to my kids. But you can start by finding a list of genres, their basic rule of thumb. That should help. And then you go, well, this is what my book has in it. Ergo, it's definitely within this realm. Doesn't mean that's 100% what it is, but at least it's within that realm. And or you can be like, well, I was aiming for young adult, but my protagonist is, 24 years old and they're not finding their way through the world. They already know their way in the world, and so on and so forth. In which case, what do you have to do in order to make it young adult if that's what you were aiming for? Start with that. You can also always ask your beta readers. So you finish the book, you get it edited, proofread, edited and proofread, and then you send it out to your beta readers and you say, well, what genre would you classify this as? And just ask them. They're your market anyway. It's okay if it could appeal to readers of every single genre. That's fine. The problem comes in your marketing message when someone says, what's your book about? And you start, oh, it's a historical fantasy, romantic, paranormal thriller with psychological horror. And that's when people go, what? No, no one's looking for that. Now, you could have elements of every single genre go in there. For, let's say you're doing a time traveling story, right? So throw science fiction in there. And as people are traveling through time, they're hitting a different genre of that time or whatever, right? Or going through the multiverse or whatever, right? There are ways, and you can tie in elements from every single genre into your story. But you wouldn't make that your marketing message. You wouldn't say, this is a time traveling story where they deal with, because you just look like you're not telling a story at that point. You look like you're keyword stuffing and trying to get found in all the categories. No one knows what your book's about, and it doesn't sound like you do either. So it's not so much about what's in there. It's how would you categorize it? And for the most part, you want to pick the most two prominent, maybe three, but it depends on what the three are, most prominent genres, and then start looking for books that are at the top of those two for your marketing. Fallen Angel and the Mafia, set in present-day Nebraska. Maybe paranormal or mafia or both. It's got dark elements, but would it be dark romance? Does it have a happy ending? Like, we can answer part of that right there. Does it have a happy ending? The other thing about genres, a lot of them encompass the same things, like urban fantasy, paranormal. Okay, so ish. So again, fantasy equals magic. Paranormal equals supernatural, but based in realism. So I know, like, a lot of people, for example, this is where witches kind of sort of can get blurry, because they can be either one. They can be considered magic. They can be considered doing magic, but they're also paranormal in the sense that they are based in the real world. There are actual religions. There is what they call magic, but it's not, waving a wand and casting a hex and boom, a spell goes off. It's very, very different. It's all about energy, things along those lines. So there's a definite blur if you are including witches between either, but that becomes like, what is their magic? Is it based in realism or is it just magic? It does. Romance. I know that much. It's okay if you're not good at categorizing. So choose your biggest two, which to me, it feels, based on this, I would probably say, paranormal romance, if those are the two biggest, because I believe that paranormal is bigger than mafia. So I think that those would be the two. And then you can also write with those two in mind. Keep the other in your thoughts if you want. You can always, if it still doesn't feel like it's meeting those two, then you can turn around and ask your beta readers, what would you categorize this as? And give them choices. Maybe paranormal romance is fine, but maybe they'll think that the mafia size is too much. Urban and Nebraska don't really go together. So I wouldn't put urban on the list. They just don't go together. If it's got a setting in Nebraska, it's not urban. I don't even think, I might be getting it confused with, Wyoming. I was thinking Cheyenne. But Nebraska's biggest city is barely, 100,000 people? Right? It's not big. It's definitely not urban. Mine would be new adult paranormal fantasy. Nice. The main paranormal aspect is the fallen angels. Like, they're not a huge aspect necessarily. Mafia plays a bigger part. Okay, so then I don't know if you could get away with paranormal mafia. But of the three, paranormal, mafia, romance, the romance is the optional one, in my opinion, allegedly. I would use the romance genre as the optional one, mostly because unless it is the biggest draw of your book, romance is everywhere. Like, it's so hard to find something non-romantic that it's ridiculous. Even with the happy endings, non-happy endings, etc., etc. Like, it's so hard. Did my comment post? I got an error. I didn't see one. The last one I've got from you is, okay, then historical paranormal. Historical paranormal often just ends up being historical fiction. You don't have to list paranormal. So anyway, I would just maybe do paranormal mafia and leave off the romance. Unless you're aiming for mafia romance readers, in which case they probably won't care as much about the paranormal aspect. Like, if you're aiming and you want to market to romance readers, Goonies meets The Giver. I can't wait for beta readers to tell me what it is. I love The Goonies. Have y'all seen that meme of Sean Astin and Who was it? Well, he's in a bunch of stuff that I've seen, and he's in a bunch of stuff that I haven't seen. But he was in this particular meme. It was like, God, I don't remember what it was. But at any rate, like, the meme was the meme, and then underneath it, it said something along the lines of like, Sean Astin did not carry Frodo all the way into Mordor to be thought of as this, right? And it called him a fetus. And then I commented and I was like, Goonies never say die. Like, don't tell me that that's how you know him as Sam, when he was so many other things before Sam. I have a dragon working as an assassin and training a succubus. The succubus falls in love with a death god. There's lots of violence and a little romance. Okay, so magic, because dragon. So yeah, fantasy. Now, okay, so the other part of romance is like, we all know romance, happy ending. Could be happily ever after, could be happy for now, right? Happy ending. But the other part of a romance book is that the romance is the focus of the book. So if it's, he was in Stranger Things more recently, yeah. You're right. Bob. Anyway, sorry. I love that his character's name was Bob. Anyway, so romance. Oh, the romance has to be like the core of the book. Like, the story, the plot focuses on the growth of the romance. The romance is treated almost like its own character. It's got its own arc. So if that's not the case, if it's just romantic feelings that popped up and, oh my gosh, single bed and so on and so forth, happy ending or not, it's still probably not a romance book. Because this is why I said, of all of the things, if you're looking at mafia, paranormal, fallen angels, and romance is probably the one that's optional, unless you're aiming for romance readers specifically. But if you're aiming for romance readers specifically, then you need that romance, the romantic relationship needs to be front and center. It's the core of the entire story. That's what the plot centers around. Sad for Bob. It's set in the late 1800s in Europe. So, yeah, you could probably get away with either calling it historical fiction, although historical fiction also includes, like, Philippa, what's her name? The White Queen. I can't think of her name right now. So it doesn't necessarily have to, historical fiction doesn't necessarily have to include fantasy or paranormal, just a lot of times it does. For something like that, I would say, who are you trying to attract? Are you trying to attract the people who would be into, say, Outlander? Or are you trying to attract the people who would be more into the White Queen? And then depending on which side you aim for becomes historical romance, historical fiction, or historical fantasy, or historical paranormal, or something along those lines. I have a lot of spice because of succubus, but spice does not equal romance. Spice is spice. It's not necessarily make it a romantic book. Might make it an erotica book, depending on how spicy the spice is. That's the meme. 51 dates, 51st dates. That was a great movie. The disrespect, right? It was a good movie, but yeah. And then gets a subgenre I can't figure out. Then don't worry about the subgenre. Don't even worry. While you're still writing, don't even worry about it. Your beta readers can figure that out. You can be like, look, this is a paranormal mafia book. What else? Where would you expect this book to be? And give them a bunch of choices and let them tell you. That's what beta readers are for. Market. Market reaction. I didn't finish my sentence. He was Doug too. Yeah, he was Doug. He was Doug in 51st Dates. Yes, he was. My spice would probably get me lumped in with erotica, but I have a bit of action and adventure as well. Okay, but see, again, I mean, having action and adventure is great, but does that mean it's an action story? Does it mean it's an adventure story? It depends on what the focus is of the plot. What is the plot focused around? Having spicy scenes, you might have to, just because of the content, that might mean having to list it as 18 and over book, rating M, etc., etc. But it doesn't necessarily mean it is a romance book or even necessarily an erotica book if that's not the central focus of the story. You don't focus on the spice. Yeah. So, see, it can have spicy scenes, but if the focus isn't on the spice and the spice isn't necessarily plot driven, even if it drives the plot through parts, but if it's not a central focus of the plot, then it probably does not fall within erotica. You knew you recognized him from somewhere. He has made his way around. He's awesome. But to me, and I know he was in other things even before Goonies. Like, I think Whitewater Summer came out before Goonies, didn't it? I'm pretty sure it did. I don't remember. But to me, I see that meme, and if you're calling someone a fetus for thinking of Lord of the Rings, then, I mean, I have to say something, because Goonies. Just now realizing my first 2 books have ties to Sean Astin movies. Really? I think that's amazing. And what 2 movies? Temporal homeschooling. Catch you next time. You got it. The Goonies and Toy Soldiers. Ah, Toy Soldiers! Yes! And obviously, I've already been raving about the Goonies, so I can't wait. I got to hear more about that book, Fran, so you need to finish it. All right, it is 10 o'clock. I do have to go. It's Monday. No, I love what I do. All right, y'all. thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning and just asking your questions and doing all the things. I hope you have an amazing day. Go get all the words written, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Office hours, yes. Later this afternoon. Actually, in like half an hour. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.